What if the part of you that's chasing success is exactly what's blocking it from coming to you? You've spent your whole life trying to become someone. The job promotion, the relationship, the recognition, all the things you think will finally make you complete. Yet after each win, that empty feeling waits for you. The voice that whispers, "It's still not enough. You're still not enough." Your tight grip on who you think you need to be is choking the very life you're trying to create. Picture all the things you want most laid out in front of you, like treasures in a hidden temple. Now see the invisible wall between you and these treasures. That wall isn't bad luck. It isn't other people. It isn't lack of a good plan. That wall is you. More exactly, it's the identity you've built. The self that believes achievement will finally make you worthy. This self that's been making strategies, picturing outcomes, and trying hard to control everything. What if success isn't about becoming more, but about becoming less? What if letting go of who you think you are is the door to everything you've been chasing? This isn't just fancy talk. This is about the invisible ceiling you keep hitting in your relationships, your work, your creativity, the ceiling that follows you everywhere. There's a reason old wisdom talks about rebirth. There's a reason every hero in every story faces a kind of death. But we've watered down these truths, turned them into Instagram quotes, while missing what they really mean. Today, we're going deep together, and what waits on the other side will change everything. Let me show you what's really happening in your life right now. You're tired from always trying so hard. The endless self-improvement, the vision boards and positive sayings and plans that were supposed to finally get you there. Each morning you wake up and put on a mask of someone who has it all together. But inside, there's a growing emptiness. You're dying to be real, but scared of what might happen if you were. Remember that promotion you finally got, the one you told yourself would prove your worth. For a moment, you felt great. Then came the emptiness, faster than before. The goal moved again, as it always does. You didn't reach the top. You just found another mountain to climb. Or that relationship, where you keep showing up as your best self, carefully picking which parts of you are okay to show, which thoughts are okay to speak, which needs are okay to have. You're so tired from this act, while a voice inside screams for real connection. This pattern is slowly killing your life. It's why you feel fake in your own wins. It's why relationships feel like they're happening on the surface, while the real you stays hidden, unseen. You're stuck in a cycle of soul hunger, while stuffing yourself with achievements that never fill you up. Stop. Feel that tension in your body as these words hit home. Who would you be if you stopped trying to become anything at all? What scares you about that empty space? The hard truth is that your identity, this carefully built self that's trying to achieve its way to worth, is the very thing choking your life force. It's the reason why, even though you're doing everything right, you still feel like you're watching your life through a window instead of living in it. Drop a fire emoji if this hits you hard, because now we need to understand what's really going on. This struggle has deep roots. Almost every spiritual path talks about a needed death before change can happen. In Zen Buddhism, there's an idea called the Great Death, not of your body, but of your ego self that thinks it's separate and must achieve to be worthy. You must let go of who you think you are to become who you truly are. The thinker Alan Watts talked about this puzzle when he wrote about how we create a skinned, self-conscious individual who gets more and more cut off from the world by trying to control that world. This false self, this ego, becomes the very wall blocking what it wants. Your drive to succeed has become your prison. Carl Jung went deeper, talking about the persona, the social mask we wear, and how we must see it and move beyond it to become whole. He wrote about how this mask is meant to make an impression on others and to hide the true nature of the person. You've been wearing a mask so long, you've forgotten your own face. But this isn't just fancy talk. There's a simple picture that shows what's happening inside you. Think of a caterpillar. At some point, it makes a chrysalis, not to grow bigger or better, but to completely melt down. Inside that chrysalis, the caterpillar doesn't change in the way we think. It doesn't just grow wings while staying a caterpillar. Instead, it turns into a soup of cells with no shape. The whole caterpillar self must die for the butterfly to appear. This is not a gentle process. The caterpillar doesn't experience becoming a butterfly. There is death, breaking down, and then something totally new. Now think about how hard we try to avoid this melting down in our own lives. How we cling to identities and plans that once helped us, but now hold us back. How we try to skip the messy middle, wanting change without falling apart. Take another breath. Feel how your body fights against this idea of letting go. The ancient Egyptians understood this. Their Book of the Dead wasn't about physical death, but about the journey the soul takes through the underworld, facing tests, shedding false selves, and only then coming into the light. The pharaohs weren't practicing for physical death. They were practicing ego death during life. This wisdom shows up across cultures where the old self symbolically dies before the new can be born. But in our modern world, we've lost these ways of changing. We want success without surrender, wisdom without sacrifice, becoming without falling apart. You can't have the butterfly without dissolving the caterpillar. The question isn't if ego death is needed for your growth. Every wisdom tradition says it is. The question is, are you willing to enter the chrysalis? Let's go deeper into what's really stopping your change and why the death of your current self isn't just helpful, but needed for what you truly want. There's a villain in this story that has stayed hidden from you. I call it the achiever, that part of you that believes if you just collect enough outside approval, enough accomplishments, enough perfect parts of yourself, you'll finally reach worthiness. The achiever is always looking for the next benchmark, the next level up. It's the voice that says, "I'll be happy when," or "I'll be enough when." This achiever identity helped you once. Maybe in childhood, when achievement brought the love or safety you needed. Maybe in early adulthood, when it helped you find your place in the world. But what once protected you is now trapping you. Let me show you how this works in your brain. Your brain creates thought pathways based on repeated behaviors and thoughts. The achiever pattern, striving, achieving, brief satisfaction, then empty feeling and renewed striving, has created deep grooves in your mind. These pathways are so set that they feel like just who you are, but they're not. They're learned responses that have hardened into an identity. You didn't heal, you adapted. This is why willpower and positive thinking fail to create lasting change. You're trying to think your way out of a pattern that lives below conscious thought. You're using the achiever's tools to try to escape the achiever's prison. You don't owe any explanation to this false self. Think about how this shows up in your creative work. When you create from the achiever identity, there's constant self-judgment, comparison, and performance fear. The work becomes about proving something rather than expressing something. And this self-consciousness is exactly what blocks the flow state, where your best work comes from. Your need to be good is blocking your chance to be great. Or look at your relationships. The achiever needs to be seen in certain ways, as capable, as having it together, as worthy of approval. This need creates a filter that true connection can't pass through. You're relating from a carefully kept image rather than from your real, messy, beautiful humanity. Take a moment. Feel the weight of this act you've been putting on, how tired it makes you. The greatest teachers throughout history understood that growth doesn't come from adding more to who you are, but from removing what you are not. Like Michelangelo said about his sculptures, I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. You don't owe any explanation to this false self. Here's where we find the first helpful insight. Ego death isn't something you do. It's something you allow. The dissolving happens not through more effort, but through letting go of effort. Not through getting more, but through letting go. Surrender isn't giving up. It's giving over. This doesn't mean dropping your goals or becoming passive. The opposite. It means chasing what matters from a place of wholeness rather than lack, from being rather than becoming. Think of water. When it's flowing, it fits perfectly to any container, finds any opening, brings life wherever it goes. But when water freezes, when it becomes fixed and hard, it loses this power. Your ego is like ice, a hardened state of being that was once as flowing and responsive as water. The dissolving process is simply a return to your natural state. The ego, this achiever identity, isn't your enemy to beat. It's a frozen part of yourself waiting to thaw. Swallowing anger doesn't make you fireproof. It burns you from the inside. This is why meditation in many traditions focuses on watching thoughts rather than identifying with them. This watching creates space between you and the thoughts that build the ego. In that space, something amazing happens. You discover that you exist before and beyond these mental constructions. You don't owe any explanation to this false self. When you begin to see that you are not your achievements, not your failures, not your carefully built persona, a strange thing happens. You become more effective, more creative, more alive in the very areas where you were previously trying so hard. The butterfly doesn't try to fly. Flying is its nature once the caterpillar's dissolving is complete. This is the start of true transformation, not through addition, but through subtraction. Not through becoming more, but through seeing that you were never the limited self you thought you were. Your silence isn't peace, it's self-betrayal. It's time to strip away the lies that keep you trapped in this cycle of endless becoming. Who would you be without your achievements? Who would you be without your carefully built persona? Who would you be without the story of who you're supposed to become? These questions scare the ego because they threaten its existence. The ego, this achiever identity, stays alive by convincing you that without it, you would be nothing. That without constant striving and performing, you would be worthless. Your potential has become your prison. Let me ask you straight. What if the person you're so desperately trying to become is stopping the person you actually are from showing up? Your true nature, beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the striving, is already complete, already worthy, already enough. But this completeness can't be experienced through adding more, only through taking away. The thinker Lao Tzu understood this when he wrote, "To get knowledge, add things every day. To get wisdom, remove things every day." You don't owe any explanation to this false self. You don't need to justify letting it die. Take a breath. Let that sink in. Think of the relationships you've outgrown, but hold on to out of loyalty to who you once were. Think of the career path you're on that no longer fits your deeper values, but which you keep because it's become fused with your identity. You've become loyal to a version of yourself that was never meant to last forever. Think of the behaviors and thought patterns that no longer help you, but feel so familiar that they seem like just who I am. Who would you be if you allowed these parts of your identity to dissolve? There's a deep grief in this process. You must mourn the self you thought you were, the dreams that belonged to an earlier version of you, the false promises that achievement would finally make you whole. This grief isn't weakness. It's the needed recognition that something is dying. And without this recognition, without this conscious experience of loss, no real transformation can happen. You don't owe any explanation to this false self. Here's the soul punch. Your need to become someone is the wound. Your belief that you are incomplete as you are is the suffering. Your endless striving towards some future state of worthiness is what keeps you from experiencing the wholeness that is already yours. The ancient Zen question asks, what was your face before your parents were born? This isn't a puzzle to solve with your mind. It's pointing to your true nature that exists before all the identities you've collected throughout your life, including the achiever who believes success will finally make you whole. The wound isn't that you're broken. The wound is believing you need fixing. What if true success isn't about becoming more, but about becoming less? What if it's not about gathering more, but letting go? Not about adding, but subtracting? The scariest question for the ego. What if you're already what you've been seeking? When the ego dies, even for a moment, what emerges isn't emptiness, it's fullness. It's the experience of being without the limits of having to be someone specific, without the tiring performance of the achiever identity. In these moments of ego dissolving, whether through deep meditation, creative flow states, or deep connection with others, you experience yourself as awareness itself, not as a separate entity striving to become worthy, but as the field of consciousness in which all experience happens. This isn't fancy philosophy. This is about freeing yourself from the prison of endless becoming so that you can fully live in the gift of being. You don't owe any explanation to this false self. Not now, not ever. Let's go back to where we began, with your tiredness from constant striving, with that voice inside that says no achievement is ever enough, with the emptiness that follows each success. Now you understand that this isn't because you haven't achieved enough. It's because achievement itself can never fill the gap that only comes from mistaken identity. It's like trying to fix hunger by reading recipes. When you begin to allow the dissolving of the achiever identity, when you create space between your awareness and this construct of self, everything changes. Not because you've added more achievements, but because you've removed the wall between yourself and life. This isn't about dropping your goals or becoming passive. It's about chasing what truly matters from wholeness rather than lack, from being rather than becoming. Remember the chrysalis picture. The caterpillar doesn't add wings to itself. It dissolves completely so that something new can emerge. This dissolving isn't failure. It's a needed transformation. Death isn't the opposite of life. It's the opposite of birth. Both are part of life. In daily life, this means catching yourself when you slip into the pattern of "I'll be happy when," or "I'll be enough when." It means noticing when you're putting on an act rather than being real, when you're seeking outside approval rather than expressing your inherent worth. It means practicing presence, not as another achievement for the ego to claim, but as a gentle return to what's always been here beneath the noise of striving. The moment you stop chasing worth is the moment you start living from it. It means seeing that the discomfort you feel when not actively chasing achievement isn't a sign that you're failing, but that the ego is losing its grip. That discomfort is the feeling of dissolving, the needed first step to rebirth. The emptiness you've been avoiding through constant doing is actually the open space in which your true nature can finally breathe. The vulnerability you've been protecting against is the doorway to real connection. The uncertainty you've been trying to control is the field of endless possibility. So I ask you now, from this new understanding, what identity are you ready to release? What part of your carefully built self no longer serves your growth? Drop it in the comments below with these words: I release the need to be. Fill in that blank with whatever part of your achiever identity is ready to dissolve, whether it's perfect, in control, the smartest person in the room, always busy, or any other mask you've been wearing. This isn't just a comment, it's a statement, a marking of your willingness to enter the chrysalis, to allow the needed dissolving that comes before true transformation. I release the need to be enough. I release the need to become. I accept the fullness of what already is. This journey of ego dissolving and rebirth isn't a one-time event. It's a spiral path that we walk throughout our lives, at deeper and deeper levels. The deepest change happens in layers, not jumps. In my next video, I'll be sharing specific practices that create the conditions for ego death to happen naturally, without force, without spiritual bypassing, and without toxic positivity. Ancient wisdom practices combined with modern brain understanding that helps this dissolving happen organically. Because here's the truth. The death of who you think you are is just the beginning. What comes next is a life of real power, creative flow, and connection that the striving self could never access. If you've felt these words in your body, not just in your head, but as a recognition at the soul level, then you're ready for what's coming next. Your soul knows what your mind can't admit. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss this next step in our journey together. Because while today we've seen the pattern that's been keeping you trapped, next we'll be exploring how to break free from it completely. This isn't about becoming a better version of your current self. It's about the emergence of a self that exists beyond the limits of what you can imagine now. A self that doesn't need to achieve to be worthy, doesn't need to perform to be loved, doesn't need to become to be whole. This is your invitation to transformation, not through adding, but through the brave subtraction of what you are not. Subscribe now to continue this journey of unbecoming everything you thought you were, so that what remains is your true nature, already complete, already whole, already free. In the end, maybe success was never about what you could gain, but what you were brave enough to lose. The dreams you chased for so long, they were never meant to be caught. They were meant to lead you to the edge of yourself, to the cliff where the old self can finally surrender into something greater. You were never chasing achievement. You were chasing freedom from the need to achieve. There's a Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities look the same from the outside, but the one who does them has fundamentally changed. No longer driven by lack, no longer seeking completion, no longer believing in the myth of arrival. The butterfly doesn't try to remember its caterpillar strategies. It doesn't need them anymore. Its nature has changed so completely that flight is easy. What if your deepest achievement isn't something you do, but something you allow? Not a peak you reach, but a surrender you embrace. Maybe it was never about becoming someone at all. Maybe it was about unbecoming everything you are not, until all that remains is the truth that was here all along. Beneath the striving, beneath the performing, beneath the endless chase for more. Your worth was never in question, only your willingness to believe it. You were never broken. You were never incomplete. You were never in need of achievement to be worthy of life. The empty space you've been filling with constant becoming, what if it's not empty at all, but the very openness in which your true nature can finally unfold? What if the part of you that's chasing success is exactly what's blocking it from coming to you? The death of who you think you are is not an ending. It's the beginning you've been waiting for all along.